Welcome to the Love Fly podcast. It's Paul Tizard's Fear of Flying coach. And today's guest is Caroline Rushforth, who's going to be talking about WingWave coaching, which you've never heard of. It's a really useful technique for anxieties generally, but I am particularly interested in how it helps you, lovely humans who have a fear of flying. So welcome, Caroline.
Hello, thank you for having me, Paul.
Oh, thank you so much for giving your time. I came across Caroline because I was looking at some research around, is coaching used for fear of flying? And there isn't much out there, but there was some for WingWave coaching came up, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And it was done a few years ago in Germany, I think. So it was a German bit. You'll be obviously familiar with all the research, and I just thought, I've never heard of that. And obviously, as a trained coach, I was intrigued, contacted Caroline and said, what's this stuff you're doing? And it looks really interesting. And you've kindly agreed to come and join us. So tell us a little bit about yourself, WingWave coaching, or anything really.
Oh, thank you. Well, I got into, so I'm a freedom from anxiety expert. That's my general kind of area. And then obviously within that are the stress, overwhelm, and I also work actually with emotional eaters as well. But generally, I came across WingWave due to my own personal journey in the emotional eating area, where I had literally tried so many different methods and techniques to help with what was quite an overwhelming and uncontrollable desire.
Yeah.
Or the way I can describe it, like a feeling, like a kind of overwhelming feeling that just didn't seem to ever leave. And although I would do all the kind of conscious stuff and cut stuff down and exercise and go on diets, there was just still this urge. It's like that addiction feeling you get. It's like it just overwhelms you. So I used to be on the committee of the NLP group in Brighton, and we used to invite people to come in and do talks, and somebody came in and did a talk, and I used to just sign up for everything, whenever there was like a discount or a freebie or just an opportunity to experience something new, I was there, because even though I had many attempts to try and get on top of it, I just was finding 15 years later nothing was working. So I think I ended up having 2 sessions out of 3, and I just could not believe the difference in the urges and the cravings. And I thought, oh my goodness, I was an NLP coach anyway. That was kind of like my title at the time. And I was working mainly in the area of kind of life coaching.
Sure.
And so I decided to then help more people, with WingWave. Well, first of all, I wanted to go and train in it. So lovely Cora came over from Germany, who created WingWave. And we did a training, and I absolutely loved it. And it was so profound because there were things in this training that I thought I had dealt with years ago. I'd been to see a counselor, I'd had NLP, I had hypnotherapy, I dealt with my stuff, but oh no, out it all came. And I just felt amazing afterwards. So I was really, really excited to train in it. It was at that training as well, there is a video of me having something called chocolate coaching, which is basically going through removing cravings for chocolate, and also, well, the craving, but also the volume of chocolate. So that was all really exciting. And then I just went out and I thought, right, I just need to get really good at this. And I just practice. And then within about 3 years, I think 2 to 3 years, I then decided, well, I would love to train in this. There was no trainer in the UK. So I put myself forward, stretched my comfort zone. And that was back in 2014, I think. So yeah, that's kind of what led me to it.
So are you the only one that runs training in the UK for it?
In the UK and Ireland now. We have our first Irish WingWave coach, and I would love to go over to Ireland to do some WingWave training. So if there's anyone listening, as long as there's enough people, it's UK and Ireland now, and we have a coach in Scotland as well.
Amazing. And I guess if people want your help, they could come to you, if they, even if they're, because we get people listening all over the world on the podcast, which is fantastic, but they could access you virtually, I'm assuming, as well. That work okay over the old Zoom and
it
Teams?
does. It does. In the classic year of 2020, that will never be forgotten, we had to, transfer to online, and so Cora put on a special training, and brilliant actually, because yes, we can reach people internationally now. And also people come from all over to train in WingWave too. In fact, it's probably more of an international technique than it has been in the UK. Anyone who would like to train in English, pretty much. And then there are obviously other trainers in other countries if that is their mother tongue. But I'm based in the southeast of the UK, but I cover everywhere. And of course, people sort of choose who they feel more drawn to. And yeah, it's amazing to be able to reach people far and wide.
Yeah. So I'm curious. One of the things that full disclosure, I contacted Caroline and said, right, when do you do training? Because I want to learn about this thing. I am a bit of a learning junkie like yourself. I've always, if I see something, I think, I can go and do that. Sometimes I've learned a few things which have been a bit goofy. I'm not putting WingWave in that category, by the way, but there are other things I've learned. I just thought, I'm not so sure about that. But the proviso I've always said, if it helps somebody and they find it useful, then who am I to knock it? But I do prefer things which have a little bit more evidence base, which it looks like the WingWave approach does. So perhaps tell us a little bit about how it works and how it might help nervous flyers.
Yeah, definitely. And on that, people, what I've noticed, have literally been willing to travel far and wide for it. And actually the most recent coach who trained in Ireland was originally a client about whenever it was I trained it 7 or 8 years ago. She was one of my first ever clients that I did the actual technique around emotional eating, and she had such amazing results. She's now become a coach, and that was last year.
Brilliant.
So first of all, like the face-to-face version, which is the most evidence-based and the most powerful, although people still get amazing results. But the face-to-face version does involve muscle testing. And it's working with the thumb and finger to basically act as a compass to navigate into subconscious stress triggers. So we'll try and break this down so people understand, because it's a lot to take in. But if I said to you now, think of a person or a food that you really love.
Am I doing this for real?
Yeah, how do you feel? Everyone is listening.
All right, okay. If you're driving, obviously do this carefully.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, okay.
You don't have to say. You don't have to say.
Okay, so think of a food I love. Okay.
Connect with your body. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So thinking of that food and just notice how that feels in your body. Yeah. How does it feel?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some of it. Yes. They've got me thinking about it. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'd like you to either think of a food you dislike or a person who frustrates you or annoys you or you don't like.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, so how's that feel in your body?
It's a completely different feeling in a similar area, but a different feeling. Yeah, I had to think then whether I was doing food or person I didn't like. So I think I did food in the end. I wasn't sure if it was a strong enough. Does it have to be a strong connection to do this, or did it just a connection?
It's just to give people a sort of way of connecting to their body. We're so disconnected from our bodies. We never really know what we feel. A lot of people kind of learn to suppress emotion, shut down emotion, but also the signals from the body. But generally, when we think a negative thought or a negative memory or a person we don't know, a situation, the body will feel weak. There will be a heaviness, or there will be a stress or a discomfort or a nausea or something like that.
Yeah.
When we think of someone we like or a fond memory, maybe you can imagine now the time you were on holiday, you were bathing on the beach and the sea and the sun was glistening down and the water was just beautiful. And so that's just creates a completely different feeling in the body. So when you actually muscle test those feelings, you will basically, and this is scientifically researched, that if you create an O-ring, or it can be done with the arm out as well, we use O-ring in WingWave, when you think of a happy, positive thought or feeling, the body will feel strong. And when you think of something negative or a negative situation or a sadness or a loneliness or an anger, the body will go weak. So that's how we're able to navigate with using muscle testing. So what this is good for is for people who don't really quite know why they have a phobia or why they have anxiety, because everything is just kind of stored in the subconscious mind. If we can't physically carry everything in our conscious mind, so the subconscious mind does a really good job of unprocessed emotions or stress and traumas or stress triggers will just literally get shoved to the back of the mind, and it stays there unprocessed if there hasn't been a decent night's sleep, or if the trauma or stress or memory has been too big to process. So you could liken that to sending an email attachment that's too big, like your photos from that wonderful holiday you went on. Send them around to the family. How people just love to see our holiday snaps. But you send the email and the email just kind of keeps turning around, doesn't go anywhere, it gets stuck in the outbox. And that's very much how the mind works. What we're able to do in WingWave is we're able to muscle test the most intense time that a situation or feeling was felt. So if someone has a lot of anger or sadness, that will be linked to a more intense time of sadness. Right. But it comes out, so for instance, people who feel quite emotional, so people who perhaps have anger outbursts or feel emotional or have depression or breakdowns, it's a build-up of like unprocessed emotion, has nowhere to go. It's like if you imagine filling up a bucket of water and leaving the tap on and then trying to shove a lid on it, that the water will just go everywhere, it will just explode. And that's what we're doing with our emotions when they're not processed. So the muscle test is able to take us to these intense times. And then we do something called bilateral brain hemisphere stimulation, which is the same as rapid eye movement.
I'm going to say it again. What bilateral? What?
It's called bilateral. So this is a technical scientific.
Yeah, it is.
Bilateral.
Yeah, got it.
Brain hemisphere stimulation.
So a little bit like EMDR type.
Exactly. It's what we do in our sleep. This is what I absolutely love about WingWave, is we're just totally working with the nature of the body. And we, in our sleep, every night have rapid eye movement if we're sleeping well, if we're looking after ourselves, if we've had a pretty typical day. However, throughout the day, we can have what we call like mini stresses, right?
Yes.
Mini emotional stresses. So that could be, if you imagine stubbing your toe or pricking your finger, or I don't know, trapping your finger in the drawer, or a paper cut. Those are kind of like mini physical stresses that the body will heal eventually in a few days. And it's the same with our emotions. So every night we get these kind of mini stress triggers that happen. It could be a difficult conversation with someone. It could be someone's not replied to our email that was really important. It could be working in an environment that we don't enjoy and we have an irritating manager or direct report. Or it could just be somebody knocking into us in the supermarket. On a typical night's sleep, we would just process that. And what happens is the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain will harmonize. They're naturally, when brain hemispheres are harmonizing, they're problem solving, rationalizing. And you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, what was I worried about? Oh, that silly person that bumped into me in the supermarket. Oh, I can't believe I got so stressed about that. And then you just get on with the rest of the day. And that's what we should be doing in our kind of natural sleep environment or sleep situation. But life happens and situations happen to us. And sometimes we can feel helpless to those situations, or we can feel stuck with them, or very, very, very rejected, let down, angry. Trauma, that's something that just comes with a shock, comes with a bang. Grief, people suddenly passing away that we weren't expecting. It's those types of things. But the very small, so I'm kind of aware I'm talking a lot. Is this okay?
It's a podcast. That's the brief. You talk, people listen.
Very typically, when we're children, we have much smaller minds, so we're not able to process as easily. So this is the other thing we then have to deal with as we go into adulthood. When we had an embarrassing situation as a child, or we felt rejected, and everyone's felt rejected as a child at some point, but it just depends on how, as a child, we deal with that rejection. And generally, children don't really know how to work with their emotions, and the mind is much smaller. So stresses and traumas, they don't get processed as easily. So this is why we then take them into adulthood. So often there will be a bit of a visitation. The muscle test will take us to a time in our childhood that was stressful, right? But it could be something as small as, so let's just say that someone had a fear of public speaking, which is a very, very, very common fear, or a fear of flying. Yeah?
Thank you. We're back on topic.
Yeah. So let's just say someone had a fear of flying. And when they were, as an adult, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand. I went on plenty of aeroplane journeys when I was younger. And then through muscle testing, you can find out when the most intense emotion was felt that's similar to fear of flying. And actually, I did actually work with a client on fear of flying once, one that's quite memorable. And it was so detrimental to him, or debilitating, because his girlfriend at the time wanted to go on holidays and take flights and things, and they always had to make sure that it was somewhere they could drive to. So that would be getting the boat, driving, that kind of thing. And actually, through muscle testing, what we discovered was actually related to a time where he was zip wiring down from a great height to the other side. Yeah. And that was enough that it created a stress, right? The mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imaginary. It doesn't really care whether you're in an airplane or on a zip wire or standing at the top of a cliff. It's the same feeling that's happening, that's kind of being triggered in the body. So the mind's then, right, this is dangerous. We need to take you away from this, and it will kick in to try and protect, fight, flee, freeze. So through muscle testing, we were able to we worked. He went on, I think it was like, what's it? I'm trying to think, when they, there's a particular company that do this, but you go on like these adventure things, and you kind of like monkey climbing on, adventure sports, you know, kind of going through trees at a great height and that kind of thing. He was just, he basically had a very nervous experience around going down the zip wire. So we were able to go in through muscle testing. Now, he wouldn't have come to me and sat down in my practice room and said, oh, I've got fear of flying, and I think that it was to do with the time where I went down a zip wire.
No.
Yeah, so that's what's so amazing about the muscle testing, is it can take us to that time where it's felt most intense. Now, that's the more sort of face-to-face version. Online version, what I generally tend to do is more kind of working with verbal questioning, using feeling and emotion, and using measuring scales to sort of connect with that. And generally, people have amazing results. But there will just be one or two occasions I'll say to a client that if you can come and see me for a face-to-face, even if it's just one session, that we can really make sure that we've got to, that most intense time. And so usually they're like, yeah, I'm there. I've had clients come from all over, and it just isn't they're so intent on getting things sorted. So
people will. I've got somebody, hopefully he's going to be coming over. I run a number of one-to-ones. As you know, I've got somebody coming over from the States to do a course in the UK, because that's what works for them. But so when you've identified, the trigger, the stressor, or whatever it is, without obviously giving away the shop, how does it work? How do you make it go away? And that's a really technical question. How do you make it go away?
How do you make the fear of flying become a love of flying?
Yeah.
Or just an acceptance or a neutrality? I often say that to clients. We never want to get someone from going to fear into actual, love. Sometimes it's just a neutrality.
And that's enough for some, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, when I think about that, I don't feel emotionally triggered. That's the point we want to get to clients to. Yeah. When I think of that memory, it's not an emotional recollection now. It's like, I can deal with it. I can problem solve. So how does that work? When we are, so again, it's through rapid eye movement, but when we're working with brain hemispheres, if sometimes when we go through stress, and I'm sort of showing my hands here, but I know no one can see me. But if you imagine the right and left brain hemispheres, okay, on a level,
yes,
and they're there and they're communicating with one another through neurons and neurotransmitters and synapses, yeah. But when we go through stress, or when something happens that's quite shocking, or something that causes us to feel angry or sad, and it's really affected us, we can either become too overly emotional about it, which means the right brain is kicking in and overworking itself, and oh god, that really upset me, and that's why some people are more emotional. But then you have the other people who are over analyzers, and they'll just analyze and analyze and analyze. And that's because the brain hemispheres are kind of, I call it being knocked out of sync. They're not communicating properly. Through rapid eye movement, through bilateral brain hemisphere stimulation, it brings the brain hemispheres together so that they're harmonizing and communicating again with a balance of both logic and emotion, making sense of it, and then problem solving and rationalizing.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yes, it's probably a leap of faith for people who've maybe not considered this. So quite a lot of people that come through either Facebook, the Love Fly Facebook group, or through the website, and Love Fly, I just got to plug it, lovefly.co.uk. They come through, ask questions and stuff. They will tend to say, I've got this is what I've got, what do you recommend I do? And up until now, I've always just said what I know, which is why I was so intrigued by what you do, because I was thinking, this sounds like, when I looked at it, I think, well, you've got coaching. I can see it looks like there's some of the bits which is around EMDR, which is very rigorous and evidence-based and recommended by the NHS. So you've got some CBT stuff in there, which is also really strongly evidence-based as well.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking there might be a bit of NLP in there, which is the bits where people are less comfortable with, but I think you've got enough going with those first three.
To be honest, NLP and CBT are kind of one and the same thing. And actually EMDR originated from NLP. I don't know if people know that, but
I knew that.
Yeah, you would, because you're in the what's the word?
Circle of trust.
In the circle. Well, you're in it.
They do acknowledge, Shapiro does acknowledge that there was a link to that.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's they've just taken it off. I think the challenge for NLP, and the thing, don't get me wrong, I'm a trained practitioner as well, but obviously not to your level. I like it because they take the thing that when Richard Bandler, I saw him up on the stage and he said, you know what, there's loads of these books out there that talk about NLP. He said, I have no idea what's in any of them. He said, but it comes down to some basic stuff. He said, you look at what's working for somebody or not, and you try and get them to do more of the stuff that's working. And if they can't work it out, you ask somebody else and go, well, how do you do it? And you help them to change their process. What's your process? How do you get scared of flying? And I've always thought that. So when I used to help nervous flyers, I used to say to them, how do you know when to be scared? How do you know when to be claustrophobic? Because it's not the same for everybody. What's your process? And that's why I was drawn to the WingWave, because I thought, there might actually give me some extra tools here.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing also is, we, as our mind is really just a program, a computer that we train to think a certain way. But it is defined by what happens to us, by our beliefs, by our values, by our experiences. But the good news is that we can reprogram it. We can unlearn unhelpful habits, unhelpful behaviors. I searched and searched and searched for so many years to find something that would help with, my original topic, which is emotionally, which I know a lot of people can relate to. And there were just times where I just felt helpless. I felt disappointed. I thought, am I going to be the last person on this earth that's going to ever be able to, overcome this, or to just feel different, to not come home and want to desperately gouge on chocolate, and I just never gave up. I think that's the thing. Anyone who's listening to this, you're not stuck with something forever. You can change. And yes, stuff happens to us. We've all had challenges, we've all had stuff happen. That is what defines who we are, and that's where we can bring the best version of ourselves to the world, because we can be an inspiration.
Yeah.
But there is always a way out, and the minds can be reprogrammed. That's what I love about it. And so, if you do find yourself kind of playing the same old program, which is, negative thinking and self-doubt or worry, the other thing with things like phobias is it means that people can lose their self-esteem, that they feel helpless to it. It's like, I just don't know what this is. And so that can really knock people's confidence.
Yeah.
But it can absolutely be changed. And never ever give up is one of my favorite taglines.
Love that. Well, so how long, you probably have seen, it sounds like you've seen a range of anxieties, phobias, etc. What's the sort of typical number of sessions that people need? I mean, I know it's a bit like how long's a piece of string, but in your experience, what would you say is the general rule here?
Yeah, it is a bit how long's a piece of string, because obviously it's all down to when I've spoken to the person and had a consultation. But I would say it can be done easily my programs range between 3, 6 or 9 sessions. I do unlimited sessions for 6 months for some people who just really need support on a more regular basis. But people will start to know, certainly with WingWave anyway, people start to notice the change within 1 to 3 sessions. And so that's when someone's able to know if WingWave's really working for them. And so, I can't sit here and promise that it will work, although, I find it very hard to to not say that, because everyone I work with, I've seen people's life change in 45 minutes. I used to go to my hairdressers, and she used to put foils in my hair. And she had a situation with grief, and she said, I just can't seem to move past this. And just as the colour was taking on my hair, I said, look, let's do a little bit of WingWave. And within 45 minutes, we cleared it. Now, that's an example of, sounds too good to be true. But honestly, I've seen that happen so many times. Now, then there is the more kind of deeper topics. People who've perhaps got long-term anxiety, panic attacks, or people who have had phobias. With phobias though, like I've seen them change like within literally 1 to 3 sessions. It depends if there's anything else around that particular phobia. And I think with the guy that I worked with, the case study that I gave you was about 6 sessions. Because sometimes you need to go through sort of some layers. It's not just necessarily one thing. Sometimes it can be a pattern of events. So yeah, you need to have that time to kind of work with the client, but they will start to notice a change quite quickly.
That sounds great. Have you ever found anyone you couldn't help, or have you turned down people?
I can answer both those questions. Yes, I have turned down people. I will only work with people who I feel comfortable with and people who are committed to wanting to make a change. You can't, it's like sometimes I get parents kind of bringing their children, but the child doesn't want the help. Yeah, 12-year-old boy or girl, the parent obviously knows that it would help them, but the child doesn't want the help. You can't work with people who don't want the help. So that is all to do with placebo. You've got to be open. You've got to have your mind open and be ready for change, or be open to change, for the change to take place. So that answers that question. What was the other one? Has it not worked for anybody?
Yeah.
I would say in the area of people, there are a couple of people who were had medical issues. So yeah, that can sometimes kind of be where a line is drawn. It's like, actually, this is a medical situation, and so there needs to be additional support to that. Generally with WingWave, people are generally of a sound mind. That's kind of what I tell my coaches. You have to be of a sound mind. People who have, for instance, personality disorders can be worked with, but the coach would need to work with the psychologist as well. So you wouldn't just, rock up and work with them. There would be a team supporting that person.
Yeah.
But that, like I say, that's kind of, it's also about who do you feel comfortable with working as well. So when I train coaches, it's like, try not to try and fix everyone. Just try and just work with the people in the areas that you feel most comfortable with. So someone might train in WingWave and they're working the area of, sort of typical life coaching or anger management, but perhaps a child is brought to them and that is, potentially beyond their experience and skills. So that's when you then would refer to someone who does know how to help a child.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really sensible. Well, I like the sound of it. I'm certainly going to look forward to I've got to get this master's out of the way. She's only got 3 more months to go, and then I'll be tapping on your door to learn about WingWave coaching. So, as a last bit of advice, somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, I've tried everything else. I'm the worst case you can possibly help or not help. What would you recommend they did?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's a limiting belief.
And then they'd smack you. And
anything is possible. When you hear yourself say that, just know that that's a limiting belief. Sometimes we can be the worst to stand in our own way. I work a lot with perfectionists. My area is anxiety. People raise the bar to unachievable levels. And that is really just because they're trying to fulfill a satisfied parent or a satisfied other something else, whoever has been, around them. But, sometimes we can set ourselves such unachievable goals. And the most important thing and the best thing to do is to break those goals down into more realistic outcomes. The mind likes to feel like it's making progress. So if your goals, it's good to have vision and it's good to think long term, but also bring it back down and think, okay, what's the first step that I can take that's going to help me towards that? Where do I want to be in 3 months' time, 6 months' time? And then, that'll take you towards your overall goal. But listen to the limiting beliefs and just know that those beliefs are there and they all have a positive intention. All of our beliefs, all of our emotions, they all have a positive intention. And they need to be heard. It's parts of us that are trying to communicate. So embrace those qualities, embrace those emotions, and just never give up.
Nice. That's a nice way to end. But we need one more thing from you.
Okay.
You need to plug how people can contact you, because I think it sounds like it could be an interesting thing for people, somebody who's perhaps not considered this or would like to try something different. They might be drawn to this. So tell how do they get hold of you?
Well, my website is www.carolinerushforth.com, and that's Caroline INE. So www.carolinerushforth.com. My email is caroline@carolinerushforth.com. My number is 07 881 998816.
Awesome.
How's that?
That's great. Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll get some interest from this, because it does sound really interesting. It sounds like a kind of a novel way of fusing some good stuff together in a different way of approaching it.
What I love about it is it just works beautifully with other techniques. It's not just one isolated thing, although to be honest, I am kind of, WingWave's like my thing. There isn't anything else out there that I think would beat it, in my personal opinion, but I may be biased. But it works beautifully with other methods and other techniques. Like there's so many. I get all coaches and therapists from doing all sorts of things, and it's a tool. It's another tool that can be used. And I hold trainings about 3 times a year normally. So in October, on the 19th, 20th and 21st of October. And then obviously I will have dates for next year as well, but generally it's kind of a winter, mid-year and then end sort of training dates. And I would, I'm happy to hear from anyone really, even if it's just a question or
all right,
a little boost or something.
Caroline, that was awesome, really interesting as well. Something I haven't heard about before, so I found that fascinating. So thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful for that, and hopefully you'll get some contact as well, and you'll be able to do some of your WingWave magic with them.
Yeah.
Is that the right phrase? WingWave magic.
WingWave magic, and so much more than that.
Let's hope.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I always love to talk about WingWave, and it would be great when the time is right for you. Yeah, it'd be great to work with you on the training side. So
brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.